Okay, here's the materials that I use for this demo, and let's get on with the show. And here's a list of my plan for when I start a painting. With my dagger brush, I use lemon yellow, and I have dry paper to start with. I now add a little bit of French ultramarine blue with the lemon yellow and a little bit of quinacridone gold. I use a drinking straw now on the very wet areas of the edges and splay out to make some foliage type marks. While the paint is still wet, I now add burnt sienna and a little bit of cadmium orange for some rocks. As there are going to be a few trees in the foreground, I make sure that my marks that I'm making for negative painting isolate the tree forms. I also add a little bit of French ultramarine blue into the burnt sienna to make some of my darks. All the colours merge. Leaving that section alone for a little while, I start to add cobalt blue with permanent magenta. This gives me my purplish colour. As I've used a new colour, I have to start infiltrating that colour into other areas of the painting. So you will see that I have flicked some of that purpley magenta mix into the areas around the tree. Still using my dagger brush, I'm starting to get a few marks going up the little track now, and I'm keeping continuity with my colours. So there is the lemon yellow even on the left hand side as well as the right hand side, and there's green areas as well. So I gradually start working the painting in all these little jigsaw parts, still cognizant of my tree shapes. And so let's start on a tree, shall we? With the cad orange mix on the light side of the tree, I start just feeding that colour in a little bit along the trunk. And then I start using burnt sienna and ultramarine blue as my dark colour. And I'm just letting that hopscotch its way through the foliage. Here I'm pointing to an area that I do think needs to be made darker, so that I can make the tree shape stand out. And on the other side of the tree I need to do it as well. So I start to get a good strong dark with my ultramarine and burnt sienna, and then I'm starting to use my palette knife and I'm scraping into the paint. When you use a palette knife, you've got to be careful to use the round ended palette knives so that they don't cut the paper. And I only use about the first ½ inch of that palette knife. Just hold that palette knife a little closer to the actual page so that you're not going to cut in and score the paper. Having done that, I'm going to move over to the pathway now and use a bit of cobalt blue, this time with permanent rose. And these two colours together are going to make a lovely shadow colour. Still leaving a lot of my white paper. I work on the back line of trees now, bringing one shape behind another. I'm still using my dagger brush to do this. It's a nice way of bringing everything together in harmony. And I start to get a few other tree-like elements coming out of the foliage here and there so that there's a continuity with those elements. When I come to doing the sky, I turn my page upside down and I work the same colours that I did on the track, which is cobalt blue and permanent rose. If you don't have permanent rose, you could use alizarin crimson. And then I just roll a wet tissue into some of those areas to create cloud-like shapes, a wet tissue or a wet paper towel. And I use some of that powdery blue colour to peep through some of the white areas within the foliage as well. Time for my signature. I think I'm done. Thank you so much for watching and putting up with my funny little amateur video. I hope I get better at this for your sake. But thanks again and see you soon. Bye bye.